Hello, friends? Hello? Are you there? Are you there? It's me. It's me. Host Eric. Host Eric. And I've got natural, echo. If you've got natural echo like me, you're living large. Today, I am, as the title of this live stream says, waiting to debate. Will I actually debate? I don't know. Hey, David Sanderson. Are you the guy who I've been eating? Are you ready? Oh, you are ready. Well, I'm here. I'm right here. Echo. So, I'm going to have to change the audio now. You were in TWP2? Oh. I don't really use that room anymore. I replaced it with your mom's face.
Boom.
Boom. Boom is right. B-O-O-M, boom. Alright, so, put this on. You know, just when you said game time, Freddie Forgiato, and I read it, was the first time I felt a flutter of the old feelings. The old feelings are metallic taste under the tongue. I got desire to grasp my breath or whatever that I always used to feel before I'd go into a debate round, and still sometimes feel like before I go into a big coaching moment too. But less so as a coach, more so as a competitor, you know.
Agent? No, nothing to say.
Oh yeah, there you are. Okay. And
what is up?
Not much. I can change the title of this to whatever it is we're debating.
I'm not too sure what we're debating yet, but yeah, I don't mind what it's called.
Okay. I guess I'll wait for David to tell me what we're debating. You don't know what we're debating either?
Oh, well, he said religion, but then I hear that you're not denominational.
I'm not denominational?
Apparently. Do you have a denominational religion?
You mean like, am I a specific sect of Christianity?
Oh, a specific sect of any religion, in fact, yeah.
No, not a specific sect.
Okay, but you're a Christian.
Yeah, I self-identify as one.
Okay. Yeah, well, we can debate that if you like.
Alright, sure. I'll put, debate. And I'll put a colon. Almighty God.
Almighty God, yeah.
Question, Almighty God, colon. A huckster?
Hey, David.
Hey. How you doing?
Hi, David.
Yeah, so I mean this might seem a little bit awkward, but like you guys don't really know each other very well, but like, you know, like cross-platforming a little bit, and I wanted to see like how you guys would interact, because I mean, I know you guys both are pretty high in NE, so I was assuming it'd be like some sort of fireworks would start to go off.
Okay, well, my goal today is to, you know, have a pleasant debate. So, whether or not fireworks go off depends on, usually, the desire of my opponent to dissemble. But we'll see. Alright, so yeah, we're rolling the stream, so you might as well go ahead and launch us off. I don't know what if you have a specific format in mind, or if you want us to each answer questions. I think you mentioned something like that. You want to run time on it or something? Whatever you want to do.
I don't really like, you know, strict formats like timing and stuff like that. I prefer to make the conversation organic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I guess my first question would be, what leads you to believe that there is a God?
Well, my position on that is that it's a category error question. Namely, specifically, faith-based behaviors don't correlate necessarily with belief, or at least they don't supervene upon belief.
exactly. Okay, but presumably you have some reason to believe in the God that you do at the very least. You must have a reason to pick Christianity over some other religion.
I haven't
Otherwise,
conceded
it's just
I haven't conceded that I believe in God. I would say that a belief is a different thing than
You said you
faith.
self-identify.
I do.
You self-identify.
I do self-identify as a Christian.
I think it follows necessarily from that you believe in the Christian.
Not absolutely not, because belief in God is a statement that you either affirm or negate. My position is that faith is a behavior.
Faith is a behavior. I mean, faith is a type of belief essentially.
No. I mean,
Okay,
I'd find faith as the act of internalizing or affirming that for which there is either no direct evidence or in the face of contrary evidence.
So you say internalizing or affirming either if there's no evidence or in the face of contrary evidence.
Faith is what you broadly call belief without evidence. Belief in the absence of evidence or in the face of contrary evidence.
Well,
That's what faith is.
Belief without evidence, by definition, is a belief. There's no getting.
No. Because look, you're mistaking belief as an object of analysis rather than a process people engage in. Now, look, the thing is, people don't actually believe. They think they do, but they affirm or negate. Those are different things. And what I'm saying is, I don't affirm your position statement about God or any of your position statements about God.
Okay, so you said that the reason that you wouldn't agree that you have belief is that you replaced it with the term faith. Then you defined faith as belief in the absence of evidence. It seems like that it follows, therefore, that you have a belief or that you affirm a belief in the Christian God. I'm not sure how we can get around that.
Okay, so I will agree with you that conventionally those are the definitions of faith. So if I were going to describe faith as distinct from belief, I would specify that its distinction lies in the fact that it exists without evidence or in the face of contrary evidence. However, let me finish. However, I still go back to my central definition of faith, which is it's a behavior, not an objective analysis. So whatever reductive objective analysis description you give to it is missing the point.
Well, I mean, I think behaviors obviously are objects of analysis. You can analyze someone's behavior very effectively.
You can make a behavior. You can make a behavior into an object of analysis. In fact, you automatically do when you talk about it. But that doesn't mean it is one. That doesn't mean it is one.
I mean, it may not mean that it is one, but I'm not seeing what the problem is with me making it an object of analysis. There is no.
Well, you can make behavior an object of analysis for the purpose of the debate. What I'm saying is that the actual behavior doesn't ascribe to your rules for objects of analysis because it isn't one.
Well, I think that's just question begging because I have no way to contest that. You're taking that as a presupposition that you would say is for granted, right? I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay, well, you may take it as question begging, but what it actually is a frame critique I'm making of you, saying that, in fact, you're arguing the question of God and religion wrong to begin with. You're making a category error if you think it needs to affirm according to these sort of logical metrics. It's magical thinking, after all.
I mean, could you explain how it's magical thinking exactly?
Well, because it requires you to engage in non-evidentiary based behaviors of some sort.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that there are good reasons to believe in God. Whether or not you can provide me with them, that is besides.
I mean, I can give you the best. I can give you the best argument if you want to affirm this position statement of God's existence. I can give you the best argument for it, but that's not a reason to believe in anything.
Well, I think
that's a reason to think that the affirmation won that argument. That's different.
No. I totally disagree. In my opinion, a good argument is a good reason to believe in the proposition that it affirms.
Okay, but see, my good arguments are good reasons to believe in the proposition that I'm affirming, which is that the proper frame to analyze magical thinking is within a magical thinking frame, not a rationalist frame.
Yeah, but again, that's presupposing that it is magical thinking, which is the thing that I reject.
Okay, so then now let's switch positions then. You explain to me how belief in God is rationally justified, okay? So that then I can proceed with my argument.
Okay, so I would say that belief in God is rationally justified, or belief in what you might call God, I don't call it God, is rationally justified by the existence of objects. If not for God, how do things exist?
Okay, that's an appeal to ignorance. Asking me a question is not explaining why. It's not a reason.
I know it's not. I'm setting up the argument. The point is that that's not an appeal to ignorance. An appeal to ignorance takes the form of, I don't know, therefore this is true. And I didn't say anything of the sort.
Okay, you're right. You didn't make explicitly an appeal to ignorance. Instead, you you did the rhetorical workaround to it, which is you said, well, if not for God, or if not meow, why meow? So that's an appeal of ignorance, because it's saying because you don't have an alternative answer, we should accept your affirmation. But you have the burden to affirm because you're making the claim.
Again, I'm not saying that I don't have another explanation. What I'm saying is that in the absence of an explanation, it would seem to be nonsensical, which is to say that if there were no God, why should there be anything to begin with? I would say that if there were no God and there were no reason for things to exist, things ought not exist, because it is simpler for things not to exist than for them to exist.
Okay. Let me make this conversation more purposeful. The reason it's so difficult to argue about God in general is God is probably the only thing that we genuinely argue about its existentiality in a frame of reference where we can't actually resolve it meaningfully, because we're talking about something that definitionally isn't constrained by words and definitions. It's ineffable, quote unquote, right? So when you say, no, listen. When I'm making arguments about God, you'll note that all my arguments work the same whether we define God or not. Whereas that's not the case with what you're doing. And because you can't and won't define God, what you're doing is specious dissembling.
Well, I can define God. It's just like I said, I don't use the term God. So what I would put in place of God, I would not call God.
But you're the one who's arguing that there are good rational reasons to believe in God.
To believe in what you would call God, yes.
Well, you don't know what I would call God.
Well, to believe in what anybody would call
God.
Well,
not everybody's going to call the same thing God.
Obviously, but there are certain characteristics that are undeniable.
But you said you had good rational reasons, and now you're denying me the access to those rational reasons you claim you have.
I'm not denying you access to them. I'm just telling you that the reasons don't lead me to believe in what other people call a God, which is a conscious...
But remember, you keep switching ground here. Look, at the moment, you responded to my claim that religion was magical thinking now by saying that you would justify it rationally. And now you're saying, now you don't believe it, which means you don't actually think it's justified rationally, right?
It sounds like you're not listening to me, right?
No, wait, you are not listening to me. Okay, because what I just pointed out was a clear problem in your argumentation. Now resolve it, please.
Repeat it for me. Okay,
earlier you said, when you objected to me saying that believing God or faith or whatever is magical thinking. And you said, why is it magical thinking? I said, because it's not rationally justified. In other words, argumentational justifications don't justify it. And there's a number of reasons for that. But then you said, instead of saying, justify your claim, Eric, explain to me why that's the case, you said, yes, there are good rational reasons for it.
Yeah.
But you haven't provided me one yet.
Okay, so obviously, for my side of the argument, right, I'm going to need to provide a definition of God. Otherwise, we're not going to know what I'm talking about. Because even though in your mind, right, it doesn't matter what the definition is, because there can be no good argument to support the proposition, right?
Okay, in my mind, so make your definition then. Define it. Go ahead and define God.
Okay. So what I use God to refer to in these kind of conversations, I don't believe in God and I don't use that word, but we can use it as a placeholder, right? Is the transcendental ground of being. Now, such a thing must exist in order for there to be objects at all, because if there were not some transcendental ground of being, some non-contingency at the basis of all contingent things, then there would be no basis for things to exist in the first place.
Okay, so what you're saying is, without magic, we wouldn't be, therefore God.
It didn't say anything like that. That's a complete straw man.
Bullshit! Bullshit! It's a straw man! Bullshit! It's a straw man! Your fancy words mean exactly that! That is, oh my God, dude!
Alright, guys.
Please don't be dishonest. Please don't be dishonest.
Come on.
Your fancy words mean exactly that.
Let's listen to my words, alright? Transcendental ground of being. Now, for you to translate that into magic is very dishonest.
Okay, so what is the distinction between transcendental and, say, physical?
Transcendental is beyond physical. It constitutes the basis and the source of the physical world.
So my arguments right now are transcendental, right?
You haven't made an argument.
Okay, so that question I just asked was transcendental, right?
As in you're asking about something transcendental. That's not the same thing as the question being transcendental.
So please distinguish between things that are transcendental and abstract, and things that are not transcendental and abstract.
Yeah, okay, it's easy. I already did, actually. I said some non-contingency at the base of all contingent things. So,
but you didn't specify what it was! You didn't specify what it was!
Finish, you'd know what I mean, right? Because you keep talking in the middle of my sentences, right? But if you'd listened to my words when I said some non-contingency at the basis of all contingent things, you might have been able to infer that the distinction between what is transcendental and what is physical is that what is transcendental cannot be otherwise. It is non-contingent.
Okay, so what you're saying is that because things are, and their existence is non-contingent, God.
No.
So what are you saying? Please actually make an argument that means something.
Because things exist, right, we can infer, because things exist and they are contingent, we can infer from the impossibility of an infinite regression that there must be some non-contingency at the basis of existence.
Okay, so
otherwise,
what's your mechanism for the impossibility? What's your mechanism for the impossibility of an infinite regression?
I reject absurdity because it's illogical.
Why, though?
It's illogical. It's definitionally illogical.
What is?
Absurdity. Absurdity is defined as illogicality.
Okay, but I'm not asking you to define absurdity or tell me about absurdity. I'm asking you why is the notion of an infinite regression absurd and therefore to be dismissed without reason?
Because it goes on forever. There's no termination. It's not logical. Logic is a sequence which has...
So if it goes on forever, then why should we conclude that God's responsible?
I didn't conclude God's responsible. I said there must be something...
Remember what you're doing. Remember what you're supposedly doing. You're supposedly arguing that there are good rational reasons to believe in God.
Yes. And what I mean by God is not a conscious creative agent responsible for existence. What I mean by God is simply that there is something non-contingent, some prime mover, a basis of existence, right? I wouldn't use any active conscious creative term. I wouldn't attach any of those ideas to it, but it seems undeniable to me that there must be some fundament underlying existence. Otherwise, there would be no things.
But even if you are right about that, there's absolutely zero link established between that thing you're talking about and calling it God, or referring to it as equivalent, or referring to it as equivalent to what I mean by God, but you haven't even asked me.
Totally wrong. That's totally wrong.
Wait, hold on. Stop the rhetorical nonsense, though. Actually engage the ideas I'm saying. Actually engage the ideas. Go ahead.
Okay, so what makes you say that I'm engaging in rhetorical nonsense? So, which part of what I said?
Well, because you want to make transcendence both not subject to any rational critique on its own grounds, on its own merits, and concurrently non-magical. So that's the problem you have.
Yeah, I'm not even understanding the critique. Could you repeat that? Because the first.
So what? Wrong. Okay, look, transcendence, right? You're insisting that it has no magical component to it, right?
Correct. Yes.
And you're wait, hold on. Let's clarify what you're actually saying. Okay.
I don't know.
I'm asking questions to let you clarify what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah,
so now look. No, shh, listen. I'm asking a question. So okay. Now you've said already that transcendence is not magical, and yet it's also but it's also okay. But it's also you already said it wasn't though, and you also said it wasn't physical. You also said it wasn't physical, and that it stems from the quality of transcendence, stems from the fundamental, like there has to be something that is non-contingent. Yeah, right, sure. Something upon which that supervenes upon nothing. A thing that supervenes upon nothing must exist.
No, not that supervenes on nothing. No, that's incorrect.
Okay, so
that's not.
Hold on. Wait. So please distinguish between it's not contingent on something and that doesn't supervene on something.
Yeah, well, there's no such thing as nothingness, so it doesn't supervene on nothing because there is no such thing.
So what's it contingent on then?
Well, it's non-contingent.
So it's contingent on...
No, that it's not
on nothing, right?
No, not as in it's not contingent on nothing.
Okay, so it's non-supervenery. Non-supervenery. Do you like that term better?
Okay, yes, I misunderstood you.
Of course, to be non-supervenery means exactly and only that it does not supervene on anything specific. Now, you might say that using the term nothing is wrong because it implies that nothing is an object of analysis. But regardless, this is what I'm talking about, dissembling, right? You are parsing apart shit that isn't even significant difference because you don't want to accept any of my arguments that are going to dismantle what you're saying.
I haven't leveled an argument, not once.
No, you have leveled multiple arguments. You've said
you
that a
have
good
leveled any argument.
listen to what you argued. You said that a good rational reason to believe in God was transcendence. That's a claim you made. You justified it with warrants. No, stop. You just said you didn't make any arguments. I just disproved you. Acknowledge it.
No, I didn't. I said you didn't make any arguments because you said I hadn't listened to any of your arguments, and I pointed
Okay,
out.
I haven't really made many arguments yet. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of what you mean. Hold on, stop. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck you mean. You won't mean things.
You did not mishear me because I said you didn't make any arguments. You thought I said I didn't.
Okay, fine. I misheard you. Hey, listen. This is how it's done. This is how it's done. Here, listen, real quick. Listen. Listen. I'm going to demonstrate how to do this. Okay. So in this instance, with what you just said, you were right. This is me responding to what you actually said. That I did mishear you. Now, this is what you need to do as well. It's called being honest.
I know, but the thing is that then you grandstanded for 40 seconds. Are you going to be honest about that?
Okay, so I will be honest about my grandstanding too, which is to say, it is true that some of my upsettedness was probably an expressive display rather than a meaning conveyance. Okay?
Okay, good.
Now, can you please tell me how to distinguish between transcendence and something that's physical or understood besides simply saying that everything that is non-contingent or non-superventory is transcendent? Because that's not how any normal person defines the term. That's not how any normal person defines the term.
I don't care if you think that's how normal people do it. I did define it that way. There's no logical objective.
That's fine, but listen. But saying that it's transcendent, and then I'm asking you to tell me what it is, and you say it's actually non-contingency. Wait, if it's actually non-contingency, then use that word.
Okay, so non-contingency means that it cannot be any other way. There's no logical alternative to it.
No, it means there is not anything that it is contingent upon. It's a difference.
Yes, but what it means to be contingent on something is it means that you rely on the truth of something prior in order for you to be true, or the proposition to be true, right? So if it's non-contingent, it's true necessarily, which is to say it could not be otherwise.
Okay, but that doesn't make it in any way a justification for anything.
That's incorrect. Saying it cannot be otherwise is the perfect justification. If I have two options and one of them is not possible,
stop. I'm not saying it can be otherwise. I'm saying that it cannot be otherwise is not an effective argument to justify any conclusion from that.
Incorrect. That's not true.
Then go ahead and justify one.
Saying that it cannot be otherwise necessitates the conclusion that it is true.
Okay, so look, remember this. What is truth? It's a status we afford to statements. Remember that.
Well, no. So I would say truth is that which is as it is, independently of subjective perception.
What can have a truth value? What can have a truth value?
Propositions. But what we mean when we say that a proposition is true is that it corresponds with actuality. So therefore, what we mean.
That's one of multiple methods by which we evaluate truth. Truth is non-universal. Validity is universal.
Okay, yes, okay. But the point that I'm making is that when we say, unless you are a coherentist, I mean, what theory of truth do you subscribe to? If not,
I have a three-pronged modified understanding of how it works, and it's an actual description of how people evaluate truth, not an epistemological.
Okay, so it's not a theory of truth. Then I'm going to ask for an epistemological theory of truth because that's what I'm educated on. So I understand the theories of truth. Of the theories of truth formally considered in the field, I'm going to appeal to correspondence. Under the correspondence theory
it's part of my understanding too. We're not in disagreement there. Okay? We're not in disagreement.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Under the correspondence theory of truth, a proposition is true if it corresponds with reality. Now, if we mean that the property of truth belongs to propositions which correspond with reality, then what we mean is that when the proposition matches what's in reality, then the proposition is true, which means that what is in reality is what is true.
Look, it's conditional, not biconditional. You said it yourself. If, not if and only if.
Yeah, I could have just misspoke.
Okay, well, fine. Okay, you misspoke. Fine. But the point is that modality of understanding truth is not exclusive of alternate approaches towards truth evaluation. And in fact, truth evaluation is a process individuals do in different ways. Now,
yes,
what you want truth to exist as an absolute universal epistemological object, but it doesn't. It's validity that's universal, not truth. We know validity is
yes,
universal.
In a subjective sense, validity is the criteria, but truth in that sense is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the object of the world, which is to say that which actually is the way things actually are. That's what I'm calling truth, and that does obviously exist.
Okay, but identity, if you want to make identity synonymous with truth, then you are doing a grand disservice to both terms.
Well, maybe, but that is how I understand them.
Okay, well, if you want to, then we got to the bottom of the problem here. You're conflating two different things.
I don't think so. I mean, you didn't actually show me how. You just said that I am, right?
True enough. Okay, I will explain. So you say that truth and identity are the same thing. In other words, it's true that this is a lighter, but the problem is you're stuck with a linguistic problem. So the statement "this is a lighter" is true. The fact that it's a lighter, that it has an identity, is understood correctly or incorrectly by intuition, a knowing approach. Okay, but truth regarding the lighter only occurs when people are communicating about it.
I disagree with that. Yeah, so that I understand what you mean, which is to say that you only get a true proposition in relation to the lighter when people are communicating about it.
No, that's not what I mean, though. That's not what I mean. What I mean is specifically this, that when we use the word truth, we're talking about the weight of an object. And when we use it to describe a PDF, the physical weight of it, we're misusing it. We're making a category error.
I'm confused. Sorry. When we use truth, we're using it to describe the weight of an object. What do you mean by that?
No, so what I'm saying is, it's an analogy, okay? Truth is a term that we use in lots of different ways. Sometimes we say a person's statement is true or a person's statement is false. Sometimes we say a given song is very true or something like that, right?
So I would think when it's relatable.
Okay, I'm saying how people use the word. Okay, sometimes people use the word. Okay, I haven't made an argument yet, so just agree with my observation unless you see something to disagree with it. Okay.
Yeah, the thing I disagree with is that I don't want to use the broad
No, I'm talking about different ways that people use the word. In other words, people use. Okay, so I'd like to observe a few different ways that people use the word. No, I'm not arguing in favor of any of them. Okay.
Fine. Yep.
So one way that people use the word is to describe statements that people make. Another way that people use the word is to describe like media objects, things with identity that are objects that aren't physical, like a movie or a song or something. Another way that people... I'm sorry, say again?
In the sense of being relatable?
No, look, you don't get to say what they mean. I'm saying this is how they use it, okay? We don't know what they actually mean. We don't know what they actually...
I know we don't.
Okay, okay. At this point, you are preventing progress in terms of the reasoning.
I'm not. I'm just trying to make sure we understand each other, man. Listen, all I said was it was a question in the sense of relating to it. Now, unless you can come up with an alternative thing, they might.
Okay, hold on. Look, what I've attempted to do, and let's finish this thing first, and then we'll go on to whatever you want to go on to. Okay, what I'm attempting to do is observe that people use the word true in different ways from the perspective of a third party, okay? And I'm attempting to delineate some of how people use the word, what it appears to be from a third party's perspective. Now, we won't actually get to know what subjectively they think they mean, but we can correctly taxonomy different ways that people use the word. And we can do that cooperatively. You don't have to fight back against everything I say just because I'm saying it, okay?
I was just trying to clarify, man. I legit was just trying to clarify.
Okay, so people use the word true in different ways, okay? So we know that sometimes people do talk about things that are not statements as though they are true or false.
Yeah, of course.
You do. In fact, you've already embraced that understanding of the term, right?
Yeah, but if what we mean by that is that it's relatable, yes.
Okay, well, that's different than true, isn't it?
That's how I understand other people using it in that way.
Okay,
but otherwise, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right. Okay. Fine. So you choose to think that they mean that when they say true. Okay. I don't mean that when I say true about music. I say this is a very true song. Let me explain what I mean. When I say this is a very true song, I mean it's discovered, not created. It's an entity and an identity in and of itself, and it's true to that identity and its expression. Now, I can't justify that. This is not something that I can logically justify because it's a holistic truth, not a reducible truth. So when I use the word true to describe music, I'm saying it is objectively so that this is aesthetically preferable to alternatives or something like that. Now, you might say, well, you may say it's objective, but you haven't proved it's objective. That's true because objective does not necessarily mean reducible nor right.
Okay, so like let's just go along with that. Sure, there's other ways people use truth. Yeah, what next?
Okay, so here's the thing. You're saying what you mean when you use truth is something different. Except we both know that most of the time when you're using the word true, you're referring to a statement that somebody made, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, so I'm asking you to explain how your definition of truth differs from mine in a concrete, specific way that it can be used as a rule to judge something, okay, going forward. So in other words, if I say to you that truth is a status we afford to statements, and you say, that's not how I understand it, okay, fine. Yeah. We know that sometimes you understand it as that, but what's your overarching definition that includes truths that are not that are not statuses for statements?
Yeah, so I distinguish between basically I use little t truth, which is the truth that you mean, the propositional truth, right? The truth of a proposition, which is to say where some statement that you make in perception corresponds with your experience of reality, right? That's what we mean by true there. It's true insofar as you're able to tell. But my understanding of the correspondence theory of truth puts truth at a higher level than that, which is to say that truth is the identity of the world, the non-mental world, the mind-independent world, right? Okay. So if truth is the identity of the mind-independent world, then true propositions are derivative of the mind-independent world insofar as they correlate with it or correspond to it.
Okay, so let's talk about truth from a debate perspective now for a second, because I am a professional debate coach, and I work with argumentation all the time. So what we understand truth to be in debate is a matter of rhetorical slope. Because there are multiple heuristics applied to determine whether something is true, some of them concrete metrics, some of them heuristics, the fact is a given statement has a rhetorical slope. It's easier or more difficult to establish or sustain against critique, And the problem that you're going to have with this is that it's a holistic sliding scale thing. We cannot reduce truth to a single theory because, first of all, we have 4 different kinds of statements we make, and they each are afforded truth value according to, in some part, the nature of the statement. That is to say, we have declarative or descriptive statements, we have predictive statements, we have normative statements, and we have prescriptive statements, and they each get validated differently. So it's like before getting too deep into the philosophy, make sure we're remembering we're talking about words.
So you said declarative, prescriptive, normative, and what, sorry?
And predictive.
And predictive, sure.
So, for example, if I make a prediction, it doesn't come out to be true, nobody accuses me of lying.
Yeah, of course. Because we're not talking about honesty. Yeah. So, you contextualized it using the context of a debate, right? And obviously we are in a debate, but I'm a philosopher by trade, so I take an epistemological view of truth.
Don't push away your actual observational data. So your actual observational data is the same as mine, which is truth is a matter of rhetorical slope that's determined by argumentation. That's your actual experience. That's your actual experience.
In a debate, it's a matter of rhetorical slope. No, in my study of truth, it definitely is not that.
Oh, but you're wrong then. You were wrong.
No,
there's nothing universal about truth.
That's just foolish conjecture.
Okay, no, it's a claim. It's an unwarranted claim. I did make an unwarranted claim. It's not, in any meaningful understanding of the terms, foolish conjecture. It's an unwarranted claim. I haven't warranted it yet, but it's not conjecture.
Okay, well, an epistemological or philosophical understanding of truth is not wrong. In fact, it's much more likely to be right than a debate context definition of truth.
Okay, well, actually, it's fully subsumed by, both those things are fully subsumed by a different abstract understanding, namely cognitive functions, which explains why both you and I are, even though we are 2 peas in a pod, both interested in the same thing, both probably have broadly similar, paradigms towards kinds of analysis, philosophy, and so forth, and yet we're still battling punch, because our nature is derived by our configuration. And in that regard, because we're logical people, TI2 will probably your ENTP like me, it means that we feel most at home negating. Now, you and I are both trying to affirm, but you'll notice how rapidly we both devolved back into negation. And how we could not stay on our respective sides of the flow because we want to meta up. Both of us want to frame up and say, I have the top level frame. My frame subsumes yours. This is a common thing in arguments between NTPs. And it proceeds as a succession of, no, you're missing the point, right? So that's the actual frame that subsumes both of our frames. But here, for the purposes of debate, it's whatever. I don't care. I'll roll in whatever framework. But we really got to make an explicit framework.
Sure, but so like, what I heard was you talked about how like psychological differences leading to us having difficulties communicating with one another. Am I?
No, we don't have any difficulty communicating. You and I have zero difficulty communicating. What we have is difficulty having a dialectical conversation rather than a rhetorical one.
Okay, so what do you think we could do about that?
Well, we could both decide to stop being that way right now.
Well,
I mean, it's hard for me, but
that implies that I'm intending to be rhetorical, which I'm not.
No, it doesn't. It implies that once you've been made aware of the fact that you're being rhetorical, you could choose to stop.
I'm not sure how, because like I'm taking what you mean by rhetorical there as like okay,
I'll give you rhetorical. I'll tell you specifically how to shift. So, and I will try it too. I will attempt to pick out pieces of what you say that I can include in my own affirmations as true, rather than attempting to negate everything or attempting to make you meet a bunch of burdens before I'll accept it as established.
Okay.
So that's what it means to be engaged in more dialectical conversation.
Well, I know what a dialectic is.
Well, you asked me. You said you didn't know how.
No, I said I don't know how to be less rhetorical because I think, like, obviously, rhetoric.
Okay, so here's a good tip. When we're talking about when you say you don't know how to be less rhetorical, and I conclude that means you don't know how to be more dialectical, don't nitpick that because they mean the same thing.
They don't. They definitely do not mean the same thing.
So you're saying less rhetorical and more. Okay, it's correct. Okay, you're right. You're right. No, you're right. You're right about this. Less rhetorical does not necessarily mean more dialectical, but for us it does.
I mean, like I'll grant you that. Let's say that in this context, right, rhetorical and dialectical are opposed in the sense of, rhetorical conversation would be a conversation for the purposes of
it's adversarial. It's adversarial versus cooperative. Adversarial versus cooperative.
As opposed to coming to an understanding. Okay, so what we started talking about, right, was the existence of God. I asked you what your reason for believing in God was, and if you'd said something like what I offered, I probably would have accepted it, which is, well, there has to be something at the basis of everything.
Okay, but you've not ever addressed my central key point. There is no reason at all to presume. You are assuming a rational actor in people, that only a few of us actually are this. You might be justified in assuming it about me, but you have no reason to assume that, as a matter of fact, belief or faith is predicated on reason.
Well, I don't have to assume that. I don't even need that to be true. For other people, it might not be true, but for me, I will never believe something unless I have a good reason. So for me,
but why believe it? Why believe it even then? Why not simply decide to affirm or negate?
Because I don't know how to do that. I literally would not be capable of denying something I know to be true. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Okay, but what if you were hired as a debate coach to negate a given resolution that you agreed with? You certainly would be able to.
Yeah, I in the sense of, yeah, but I wouldn't be believing my arguments though. And
but why are you believing them when you agree with them?
Because that's how agreement works. That's what agreement is.
Agreement means you concede that that you will treat it as though it were true, not that you believe in it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how to agree with an argument inside my own head without believing it.
Well, you said, okay, so look, the way it works is this. You can go, a given argument is still standing on the flow. It doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not, right? Is it still standing?
Okay, no, but that's not agreement then. That's saying I don't know how to refute that.
No, no,
If I
no,
agree,
listen. No, it is agreement. If it's still standing on the flow, and I haven't addressed it, and let's say I dropped it, in other words, I didn't respond to it and it's still standing, then my silence equals assent. It means for the sake of this argument,
No,
I
that
do
means
agree with
debate.
it. No, wait,
It's a
hold
debate.
on. Look, we can't have arguments or debates about things and include severance, which means you can't go 15, 20 minutes into arguing about something and then suddenly shift positions and kick everything you said before and still be expected to have meaningfully debated the subject. So that's why it's important that we acknowledge that we don't have to agree that a thing is true to agree that it stands for the purpose of the argument.
Of course, but that's not what I was talking about. When I say agree with an argument, I do not mean agree that it stands for the purpose of the argument. I mean agree that it substantiates its conclusion. And I'm not sure how you can agree that it substantiates the conclusion.
Okay, so all you're saying is you agree that it's the best argument right now. That's all
No,
you're
because
saying.
that's the thing. That idea presupposes a process of beliefs first, reasons later.
No. It could presuppose a process of understanding slope, like I described.
No, it's beliefs first, reasons later. Because you're saying
It doesn't have to be.
Well, no,
It
but
doesn't
listen to
have
what
to
you
be,
said.
though. You've made
Listen
the
to what you
claim,
said.
but you've not substantiated it. And I've given you an alternative approach that does substantiate my negation of it.
So, I'm just trying to understand what you said, right? You said, damn it. Could you repeat it for me?
That belief is not predicated on reason, basically.
Yeah, and we were talking about whether or not you can agree with an argument but not believe it, right?
Well, and here's another key piece of information that may help a bit, which is linguistics talks about an illocutionary and a locutionary frame. In other words, the illocutionary frame of any statement is implied I believe before it. Okay?
Yeah.
So in other words,
I know, yeah.
but really what that doesn't mean, that's a mishandle by the linguists. It doesn't mean I believe. It means I affirm. And that's a source of so many problems that we have in society is the mistaking belief for affirmation.
Yeah, okay, but that's your distinction. I'm not sure that I agree with that distinction because for me, in my own internal understanding, not in an argument, right, but in my understanding when I'm reading another philosopher's work, right, when I say I agree with something, I don't mean it's the best argument I've come across so far for this proposition, nor do I mean I cannot refute this. I mean I feel compelled by your argument to agree with your conclusion. That's what I mean.
Okay,
when
so,
I agree with
listen, hold on. Your central point here seems to be that the meaning of things, the truth of things, is not contingent on just your experience of it, but it exists universally in some sense, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But when I'm asking you to distinguish between, you say, well, that's not possible. You can't affirm something you don't believe or something like that, or you would never do that. But we came into this talking about what the word means generally, and you've rejected the idea of reducing what it means to your own experience, and then you just did it.
Reducing what it means to my own experience. No, what I said was that so like you made a distinction between what you think affirmation and belief means. That distinction doesn't hold in my experience.
Right.
So unless you can
But it does hold. I mean, it is an actual.
some of the literature though, right? Because I've read some of the literature.
Okay,
and I've
no,
never read
but
this
hold on,
position.
stop. We can resolve this instantly. I know for a fact that affirmation and belief are different things because I can and have and will again affirm things I disagree with.
Yes, and I accept that in the context of a debate.
No, we're talking about the meaning of the word belief, period.
I know, but the thing is that in a debate, you are required to give a response, right? Inside your own head, you're not. So if you affirm something, it's not because you're being prompted, it's because you feel compelled, which is different.
Okay, but look, even within an affirmation, it's perfectly reasonable for me in a given debate to kick an argument, to say, okay,
yes.
I did make this claim. I no longer do. I am no longer making that claim, right?
Sure, yeah.
So
no, I agree. That's totally reasonable. Well, but what I'm saying is, yes, in the context of a debate, in the context of an argument for the purposes of having an argument, right? Not for the purposes of establishing truth, not a dialectic. Only in a debate can you say, I affirm this, but I don't believe it. In a dialectic, that would be violating the ethic of the dialogue.
okay, well, look, the thing is, the problem with the term belief is that it tends to be understood, whether it should be or not, as something that one possesses.
Okay.
And, of course, when you aren't affirming that belief, it's non-existential within you until you know it again.
Sure.
So that's why when we use the term affirmation, you probably have you heard of English prime? The idea that we limit ourselves in some sense to subject, verb, object constructions.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea.
So it's like that, It's like when we say we affirm something, we mean something specific. When we say we believe something, we don't really know what we mean.
Okay, I probably agree with that, but when I say I mean something, when I say I believe something, I do know what I mean, and what I mean is that I think not only that I have a good reason for thinking that it is true, and therefore for acting as if it is true. That's how I understand belief, is to act as if a proposition is true, right? But that I could tell you my reasons, and you would agree that they are good reasons to believe and to therefore act as if it is true.
I agree with you that ultimately the truth that you are presenting as a set of statements or whatever will be adopted as a mutual truth if I agree with it and if I actually agree with it rather than simply agree to accept it as an argument. That's correct.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm saying that that's what I consider belief to be, is to be compelled by the argument to agree with and act as if the conclusion is in fact accordant with reality, or that it attains in reality.
This is a common frame problem. The thing is, even though it seems like they do, because they're in books and stuff and whatever, arguments don't actually exist outside of a frame. So almost always arguments exist within a conversation between two people like this, or within a conversation within yourself, within the frame that you're constructing, Yes. So,
but an argument is a reconstruction, though, of logical connectives that do exist in the world. What you're doing when you make a valid argument is that you're reconstructing the connectives that exist in the world such that someone else can see how you went from the information.
You got it backwards. You got it backwards. Look, you need to think of human consciousness as like an MMORPG. It may look like we're all in the same pool, but we're each actually manifesting the pool separately on our own computer.
I mean, see, there's where I feel like it's question begging, because I feel like that only makes sense given presuppositions I don't share.
Okay, but it still makes sense if you acknowledge a concrete physical world that's objectively so. It still makes sense, absolutely. It's just that requires the least rendering.
But that again, that imposes a frame of computer science, which that's not a realistic frame.
Okay, hold on, wait. There's no computer science frame here. It's an analogy. Hold on, it's an analogy. Okay, not a frame. First of all.
Yeah, but it's an efficiency idea.
It's not an efficiency idea. It's an existential notion about how multiple realities sharing the same central entity of a reality manifest. It's indicative of how it actually, we can see. Okay, well, we have one example where we can actually see how it happens. Oh, that one is this way. Well, probably the one that we can't really see for sure is probably more similar to the example we have than to something else that's not an example that we have. Right?
I think I heard you say that it requires less rendering, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the reason why it's easier for us to agree about statements, about physical statements, that tree is taller than that tree or something, is because the data is external and objective, and so you don't have to render it entirely on the map side of things. You can render it partially on the territory side of things. However, I also think that sensory data like that is ultimately more high resolution, which is why we retain so little of it.
Okay, but I think what I said about an argument is that an argument is about the reconstitution of a set of logical connectives that exist in the world. It is only the fact that the person could figure it out themselves that makes it possible to render an argument to convince them that it is true.
Okay, the thing is, that is absolutely not the case that something that you are somehow capable in a mechanical sense of parsing is something you can figure out necessarily on your own. Generally, you're going to need some catalyst, right?
Yeah, all I mean is that the information is there. If you knew what to look at and where to look and in what order, then you wouldn't need the argument. But the argument is a guide. It says if you go here, then here, then here, then here.
But here's your problem. People don't disagree about reality. They disagree about statements.
No, but people do disagree about reality.
They disagree. They disagree with statements about reality.
No, I don't. Yes, of course, they don't disagree with reality directly.
Now, you are insisting that statements about reality are sourced in reality. Other people don't view it that way. But all people argue about statements about reality and not about reality itself.
I think the whole point of arguing about statements about reality is that your perception of reality differs. Otherwise, why bother arguing? You clearly disagree about the nature of reality. Otherwise, there would be no difference to reconcile.
Okay, so what I'm disagreeing about is whether or not you're using proper mapping techniques. Now, as a super map heavy person, I may spend all my time freaking out about how important it is we map properly, but I never actually go outside and use the map. So, but nevertheless, that's what I'm doing. Is I'm basically saying you're advocating too much. This isn't proper parsing.
Okay, but so what exactly about my mapping technique is invalid?
Well, I mean, for example, you apply the rules that we apply towards things in the physical world as though we had the same approach towards things that aren't in the physical world, which we absolutely do not.
No, but I think that, like, the physical world obviously contains everything subjective. Like, all of the conversations we're having...
No, it contains everything objective. Okay? Subjectivity passes through the medium. Subjectivity passes through the medium of the physical world. Objectivity exists existentially in the physical world.
Subjects exist in the physical world. That is the environment.
I know, but subjectivity passes through the medium of the physical world.
I don't know what passes through means.
Okay, look, what is subjective? What is subjective is particularist and non-universal. Can we agree on that?
I agree with that. I totally disagree with that.
You disagree with that? That's what subjective is?
Yes.
Okay, but look, so let's step back. Let's talk about one way that the word subjective is used first. One way that it's used is when we're talking about people and their decision-making processes, whether they use an interested or a disinterested calculus, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so fine. The disinterested calculus is not ignoring your feelings and focusing on what's true. The disinterested calculus is not allowing your feelings to influence your parsing of it. So in other words, when you parse it correctly, you're not determining what's true. You're determining which statements ought still be standing.
Yeah, I mean, from a subjective point of view, yes.
That is an objective point of view. In other words, look, hold on, listen. Objectively, for example, if we're playing chess, we can both agree that I got you in checkmate, and that's it. Okay. Now in other words, when we're being objective, we are.
For example, when we're being objective, you have me in checkmate, and it's not a matter of until I think of something better.
Okay, but listen, that's why we have a flow, okay? That's why debates are finite, have a finite amount of time. It's why it's generally better to format them as well. But listen, arguments on the flow, stay there and remain eligible for argumentation until the debate's over. Now, look, at the end of the debate, it is objectively so. For example, let's say I argued at one point in this debate that tomatoes cause frogs to rape chickens, okay? Let's say I said that. Tomatoes cause frogs to rape chickens. And you never responded to it at all, never addressed it. At the end of the debate, we would both agree that because you didn't address it, even though it's bullshit, it's still standing. That's objectively so.
Yeah, it objectively stands. It's not true.
Okay, but that's fine. That's fine. I'm not arguing that truth. So, in other words, what I'm saying about your objectivity-subjectivity distinction is that you are assuming that the rules of objectivity either are only limited to physical objects in the world or apply the same to metaphysical objects. But metaphysical objects work differently. In other words, metaphysical objects operate on a turn-based modality, but they're conditional. So in other words, they're relatively absolute, whereas physical realities are absolutely relative.
I totally disagree with the turn-based thing. So what I would say is that...
No, you do agree with it because you're taking your turn right now. Think.
No, this isn't metaphysical. This is not metaphysical.
Yes, it is. What do you think we're doing here? Do you think this is physical? Am I actually slapping you with my hands or with my words?
I studied metaphysics. Metaphysics...
Am I slapping you with my hands or my words, sir?
It doesn't matter. Neither of those are metaphysical.
Okay, then you choose whatever word you want. What meaning? What metaphysics means the logic of physics, basically. So, in other words, if physics is the logic of the physical world, metaphysics is the logic of the abstract world. You are absolutely making abstract logical arguments, and they are absolutely metaphysical and not physical. If they were physical, if this was physical, my fifth foot would be up your ass right now.
Metaphysics? No, this is digital. We call this digital, not metaphysical.
Okay, fine. Listen. Okay, nitpick all you want about that term. That's fine. That's totally fine. Hey, I embrace your term. That's fine. Well, as long as you agree that digital is not the same as physical.
Or metaphysical. Definitely not metaphysical.
Okay, but listen. Just remember, I'm trying to actually accomplish fucking things here. So chill for a second. Listen. Do you agree that digital is not physical?
No, I don't agree. I would say
so. A picture of a tree is the same as the tree, right?
Digital is an extension of physicality. It's not the same as
it has some sort of link to the physical world that doesn't make it physical. There is something fundamentally different between a picture of a thing and the thing itself.
No, it does make it physical.
Okay, you are simply dissembling. You are simply dissembling. Listen, I am making a point. Is the song "Mary Had a Motherfucking Little Lamb" a physical object in any fucking sense?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Wrong.
It exists.
Composed of sound waves.
Hey, listen. Right. It exists. Okay. It exists without any sheet. Stop. It exists without any sheet music. It exists without any recording of it. It exists in your head as an identity.
The fact that it's conceptual is irrelevant. Conceptual things...
It's relevant to the question I asked, which is it physical?
No, it can be physical and conceptual.
Okay, it can be. I'm asking you, is the entity song called Mary Has a Little Lamb a physical thing?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Well, you're wrong.
You're fucking insane. You're fucking insane if you think it's a physical thing. Listen, the identity of the song exists in my head whether I'm singing it or not.
You're going to need to let me talk for 30 seconds.
Okay, but listen, you're just assembling. You have to, even you have to acknowledge that you can know a song, hold on, you can know a song without actually singing it.
It's irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant. Where's the physicality of a song unsung and unhung? Where's the physicality of Mary Had a Little Lamb in my fucking body?
I'm supposed to explain if you don't let me talk, right? So, if it's in my brain, it's neurologically encoded.
Matt, to be fair, you've been kind of derailing. I mean, you've been interjecting a lot, so...
You're dissembling, dude. You're dissembling.
I don't mean derailing.
You are saying there is absolutely no distinction to be made between abstract and concrete shit. And that's simply bullshit.
I said very clearly there's a difference, but that doesn't mean it's not physical. So let me explain. If it's in my brain, neurology. If it's on a page, that is obviously physical. If it's in a computer, it's in a hard drive, which is encoded physically. If it's sound waves are physical. Excuse me, which part of this phenomenon is not physical?
Okay, so you tell me, if every direction is up, what does up mean?
It's relative. It's a relative.
So, but you said everything's physical. So, what does physical mean then?
I know. I didn't say everything's physical.
So, you tell me something that's not physical then.
The metaphysics isn't physical.
So say something specific, not the metaphysics. What's some words you can say that are not physical?
There are no objects in the physical world that I could refer to. Everything that we're surrounded by is physical.
Okay, so everything's physical.
Everything that we have access to, not everything.
Okay, so the word physical has no definitional boundary.
No, that's not true.
So what's not physical then? What's not physical?
Because there's a realm beyond the physical realm by which we can have access to abstractly, but we have no direct access to it. So I can't refer to any objects because I can't access the realm directly. However, I can say that there are laws which must necessarily overrule the physical laws and compose the basis for them.
So, in other words, whatever I say is physical is not. But your metaphysics, I mean, whatever I say is not physical is. But your metaphysics is not, right?
No. So what I said was, metaphysics is the meta-logic of the logic of physics. So it supersedes physics in that sense.
So is your argument metaphysical? Hold on. So is this argument you're making metaphysical?
No. Then when, I'm just making a distinction for you.
But is it part of your metaphysics? Hold on. Is it part of your metaphysics?
Listen to me.
I'm asking a question. Is it part of your metaphysics, the argument you're making?
Is it what, sorry?
Is it part of your metaphysics, this argument you're making?
No. No.
So what is part of your metaphysics?
Well, I already explained it at the beginning. That non-contingency argument.
Okay, so that argument's not physical, right?
What do you mean? As in the argument is composed of physical
I mean,
bits?
you're the one who's refusing to mean things here, not me.
Yeah, okay, so the appeal is it's a transcendental argument, sure, but that doesn't make it not physical.
So what is not physical?
The actual transcendental thing. By virtue of being an argument composed of sound waves in a neurological brain, obviously it's been rendered physically, but the actual fact of the matter in the world, that transcends physics.
Okay, so I hear the meaning of your words. Now, I hear it by a physical medium, right?
Yep.
Okay. And that makes your meaning physical?
It definitely means you can't say it's not physical, yes.
Okay, so if I talk about a piece of wood floating down a river, is it water?
No, but it's wet.
Okay. So then we don't really have a reason to believe then that because something is passed through the medium of the physical world, it necessarily must be physical, right?
Well, actually, the analogy you gave, the water-wet one, it demonstrated the point exactly, which is it doesn't have to be water to be wet, which is to say, in contact with, right, the water. Right?
Okay, so my metaphysical ideas are getting physical wetness on them by passing through the physical medium?
I mean, I don't know what you mean by passing
No,
through.
again, stop. I'm not the one who's not meaning things here. You are. I'm asking you questions to try to get you to mean things. I'm asking you questions to pin you down. What do you mean? What is physical? So you're saying only when things never pass through a physical medium, they become metaphysical. Stop! Let me ask a question. So, if I have a thought that I never say out loud, is it metaphysical?
No, it's obviously still in a physical medium.
Okay,
brain, neurology.
So in other words, Mary had a little lamb does not exist at all except as a physical object in each of the individual human beings' brains that knows the song, right?
No, I didn't say it doesn't exist except in this way. I said it's physical and it's conceptual and it's digital.
Okay, but listen to me. So you're saying then that digitality, physicality, and whatever else you said there are they meaningfully distinct from each other?
Yes.
Okay, so then I say that the concept of Mary Had a Little Lamb as an existent sort of object of analysis in the world exists even when there's no physical rendering of it. And you say, well, but it's still in your brain somewhere, and that there's a physical corollary there, right? The physical corollary, right? So, in other words, that means that knowing a song in my head is basically exactly the same as having a rock, because they both have a physical corollary. The rock is entirely physical, and the song is entirely metaphysical, but for some reason, because you can link it to a set of cells in your brain, it becomes physical, because you can link to the physical world, right?
Come on. You know you have an idea of the rock. When the rock's not in front of you, you have the idea of a rock.
So is that idea metaphysical?
No, the idea of
is the idea physical?
Pardon?
Okay, but you've already said it's not.
I said it is. It's physical and neurological. Have you ever done...
Okay, so, but you've already conflated... Hold on. You already said neurological is physical.
What?
Yes, when I said before that something.
Yes, I said it's both. I said it's both.
No, you said it's physical because it's neurological.
Yes, neurology is a phenomenon of physics. That's a fact.
Okay, so
that is undeniable.
Okay, so look, but I just said to you. I just said you said it was physical and you said no, neurological, and I said but. You said it's physical because it's neurological, and then you said yes, it's physical. It's like, dude, come on, you're just being dissembling and combative.
There's no contradiction there. That makes perfect sense. If something is contained in your neurology, it is necessarily a physical object in existence. The same way as if I create a fucking recording of Mary Had a Little Lamb.
I get what you're saying. Look, I understand what you're saying. Right? Believe me, I do. But you seem to be just denying the simple fact that I may project a movie onto a screen. And it's true that to do that, I engage the physical world. But it's different than if I build a set on a stage. It's different. Right? And one of the reasons it's different, now listen, one of the reasons it's different is fungibility. So with digital objects, they have a fungibility that physical objects don't have inherently. In other words, physical objects have a distinct identity that makes some instances of them better than others, whereas metaphysical objects do not. So, for example, it doesn't matter which copy of the PDF you get. In fact, it's not even a meaningful question, not even a meaningful distinction to make.
Sure.
So we've now made now we're starting to get somewhere in terms of defining what makes something physical. In terms of defining what actually makes something physical in a real sense, not just your bullshit dissembling sense.
There's no bullshit though. So, the thing is, like I said, all of the examples you gave extend physicality, and they are modalities of.
Okay, so you've not given me an example of anything that's not physical, except you said there's something that you've referenced that you. If you're not giving me an example of anything that's not physical, and hey, listen, because if every direction is up, you don't mean anything.
I didn't say everything is up. I said I can't give you a concrete example because I don't have access to metaphysical objects.
So in other words,
that is a coherent answer.
You're not saying everything's up. You're just saying it's not possible for people to see down, left, or right. Right?
Yes, and that
okay, all right. Okay, so this is textbook dissembling, dude. You are just dissembling.
It's not dissembling.
No, it is. It is.
No, it's not. If I have no access to metaphysical objects, then it's just dishonest of you to ask me to provide you with an example.
If you have no access to metaphysical objects, then you are not actually. Then you wouldn't even be capable of making a distinction.
I can't give you an example. I can't see.
Then why are you insisting that your distinction about it is correct?
Because, like I said, I can't give you any direct examples. I can give you an analytical example, which I did, which was the non-contingency argument. But you asked me.
I asked you if the argument was physical or not. Is that argument physical?
You asked me to name an object.
No, I'm asking you a question. You said the non-contingency thing, right? I asked you, is that argument physical?
The argument is physical. What it refers to isn't.
Okay, what it refers to doesn't exist except when you argue it.
That's wrong. That is just wrong. That is a misunderstanding of philosophy that you
have. No. Look, guy, look, dude, come on. Think for a second. Just actually be real for a second and think.
I am being real.
You've tried to tell me that everything's physical, that's a meaningful distinction to make because stop. I'm repeating what you told me.
No, I didn't say everything's physical.
You said nothing that's not physical can be identified. Nothing that's not physical can be identified. Listen. Let's talk about dissembling. Okay, take your time. Take your time. Look.
Don't put words in my mouth that I didn't say.
Stop. Okay, so I want to talk about this word dissembling a bit and what I mean when I use it in general, because this is something that happens usually when I argue with NTPs. Now, he's indicated to me not that everything's physical, correct, but that he can't provide an example of something that's not physical because we're sort of ontologically denied access to the metaphysical plane. But of course, if that were the case, then there wouldn't be any meaning in making the distinction, and he's not saying anything.
No, but I did say something. I gave an example at the beginning. It's just that you wouldn't be familiar with that object. So, although I did give an example, I can't give you one that you are familiar with.
No, you gave me an example, which is the argument you made, and tried to position it as something other than an argument you made.
No, I said that the argument is an example that there is something that isn't physical.
But the argument itself is physical.
Yes, of course, yes. The
so,
argument points to.
So does it establish, prove? You said points to. What does that mean?
Yes. Oh, no, I would say it does prove it. But the point is that illuminates the existence of such an object, even though I can't directly show you it in space.
So your entirely physical argument proves metaphysics because it names it?
Because it names it coherently in a way you couldn't refute. Absolutely, yes.
Okay, you said it names it in a way I can't refute. I'm not in the habit of refuting names.
Well, you would have to refute the analytic way.
What is your warrant? I've not actually heard a real warrant here. What's your warrant?
What do you mean by warranting?
I mean, what is the actual justification, the reason you provided that the physical argument you're making somehow establishes, or one can infer definitively from it, that the metaphysical realm exists without actually accessing it at all?
Yes, because there are no other logically coherent alternatives.
Okay, but why does there have to be anything beyond the physical then?
Well, because that would be absurd. If there were nothing, why would there be a physical realm?
Okay, so, alright, if there is stuff beyond the physical, and say that it's absurd to think that there wouldn't be anything beyond the physical.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, okay.
Then the argument kind of works, isn't that?
Actually, it doesn't.
It actually
really.
does.
Okay, look, dude, stop playing perceptual dominance. I'm actually engaging with this idea. I'm actually engaging and trying to untangle the circularity of this bullshit. Okay, just give me a second. Okay. So you're saying that because of a fundamentally metaphysical process, that is to say, naming is naming instantiates existentiality, right?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, so what do you mean?
Listen to me. If the name that I've given is what I call it, which is to say a name that could be no other way, it doesn't require for it to be invoked. It is necessarily
You
true.
haven't said anything about what way it is.
I have. I said it's non-contingent.
Okay, so here's the thing. Is everything that's non-contingent metaphysical?
Yes. Yes.
And we have access to nothing that is non-contingent ourselves.
Not physically or direct, not in space, but I can lay out arguments for such things, which I did already.
Okay, so you really, honestly, to be, I'm not just trying to win or F you or anything. You are honestly have spiraled yourself into a clusterfuck of a disaster here. You're making multiple contradictory things. You're relying on the fundamental metaphysics. Stop! You're relying on the fundamental metaphysicality of your claim to insist that we can't actually identify anything that's metaphysical while concurrently being certain of its existence as an idea or an object.
I said I couldn't show you an example in space. Remember those words and use them. Use those words, right? I admitted I couldn't show you an example in space.
Okay, but the idea of the song, the song "Mary Had a Little Lamb" is not in space. I gave it to you,
yes,
and you rejected that.
It is.
No.
That's incorrect.
Where is it? Where is it?
It's encoded in your neurology. That's like asking, listen to me, shush. It's like asking if I give you a CD drive that has Mary Had a Little Lamb on it, and you put it in your CD player, and then you go, but wherever did the fucking music come from? From the encoded data on the CD. Your brain works just like that.
Okay. So let's say that we were in a tribe of people with no electricity or anything, no way to play audio, right? And some kids were born to this tribe.
Yeah.
And they grow up to 10 years old. Now, they've never heard, and they have never thought about, encountered in any way, shape, or form, any manifestation of the song Let It Be by the Beatles. Okay?
Sure. Yep.
Now, when they turn 11, I'm going to sing it to them.
Okay.
But between their 10th and 11th birthdays, does Let It Be exist?
Yes.
Why?
Because it obviously is already part of the world.
Okay, but it exists physically, right?
Yes, in your brain, yeah.
So it only exists for me. It doesn't exist for them.
No, that's all it takes. It exists for everyone then.
Okay, it exists physically. So where's it located physically?
Yeah, it's in your brain. It's in your brain.
But you said it exists for everybody.
Yes, as in all it needs to do to exist in general is exist in one instance. That's enough.
Okay, so when it's existing, just beyond that one instance, in what form is it existing?
It doesn't. In your example, there is no further existence.
You just said that it can exist universally if it exists in one instance. So I'm asking you.
I'm saying all that's required for its existence to be true in general. That is to say, to say something exists is just to say there is at least one instance of it. That's all that means, man.
Okay, sure, right. So I'm asking you this then. It does. Can we say that it exists? And here's where it is, and locate the physicality of it, and say, it's in your brain, Eric. So then, I'm asking you, does it exist only for me?
What do you mean, only for you?
Well, you say it exists generally, even for people who it's not in their, even if it's not in their brain. Hold on. Shh. Even if it's not in their brain. Even if it's not in their brain, right? It exists for them.
If you were a computer, or if we understood how to, dissect your brain and decode what is encoded neurologically, yes, your children could cut you up and remove it from your brain.
Okay, but hold on. Shh. Listen. Now, here's the thing about stuff that exists physically, right? So I can move it, and it won't be where it was before, and it won't be where it was before.
So?
Well, the thing we're talking about, in a song that exists for people even when it's not in their brain, well, to be physical, it's located somewhere. You've indicated it's in my brain. You've indicated, stop, let me finish. You've indicated it's in my brain. So you are stuck with a problem here, right? If it exists for people in whose brains that is not in there yet, then it must exist in some form other than physical in some capacity.
No, it only exists in the sense I already affirmed in your brain.
But you just said it exists generally.
I was going to tell you. You gave an analysis of.
So where is it then?
You can move something and it stays moved. That's a load of bullshit.
No. I didn't say that. I said you can move something that's no longer where it was.
Okay, yeah, but that's not necessarily true. If I move a copy of a file I have onto your USB drive, it's still where it was.
Right, because it's not a physical object, it's a metaphysical object. That's the fundamental distinction. Look, there are some objects that don't have that quality, right? Are there some objects, answer this question, are there some objects that don't have that quality?
That don't have the quality of what?
I can make infinite copies of it and they're completely fungible. In other words, they're not distinct from each other in any discernible way.
Yeah.
And they can exist in multiple places in the same time, place, and context.
Yeah, that's not what defines metaphysical, though.
Okay, fine. So, but I'm just clarifying. Let's clarify this. That you agree that there are some objects that don't have that quality, right?
Yeah.
And that said objects are subject to the law of non-contradiction, right?
Of course.
Okay. And whereas the USB object is not subject to the law of non-contradiction, right?
No, it is. It definitely is. It's just not a contradiction.
So, okay, if it were subject to the law of non-contradiction, then it would be the case that multiple people could not watch the same YouTube video in different spots concurrently.
No, so
concurrently. Okay, then if you want to bypass it, you have to go with my rendering model. The only way to bypass it with the rendering model.
You invoked the law. Let me explain it. The law of non-contradiction is as follows. The same two contradictory propositions cannot be true in the same sense.
No, that's not the law of non-contradiction. That is not any correct expression of the law of non-contradiction. That is absolutely not. That's a validity proof. The definition of validity is when you have stop. The definition of validity. You don't know. You don't know. Just say that.
Okay, well, I have read Aristotle. I know.
I don't care who you read. I don't care about your reading habits.
Aristotle created the law.
It doesn't matter. The arguments are yours.
No, but the point is, when I appeal to Aristotle's formulation of the law he wrote, he probably knew better than you do what he wrote.
Okay, so the thing is, what you were calling the law of non-contradiction, it sounds like a variant on something that actually does exist, which is a validity proof. Okay?
No, that is the... So you tell me what you think the law of non-contradiction is.
A given identity cannot manifest in the same time, place, and context more than once. I don't remember the exact wording. Something like that. I have to look it up. But
you cannot find me any citation that...
I'll look it up. I'll look it up. All right. I'll Google it. Fine. I'll Google the fucking thing. All right.
Cool.
It's actually in the chat. You can...
Okay. Cool.
Not the YouTube chat, but the.
The point is, though, what you're trying to say is that because there's some sort of physical link, that the distinction that between physical objects and non-physical objects that is obvious, namely fungibility and stuff, is meaningless and doesn't indicate non-physicality. So if you want to not have the word physical mean anything beyond like that everything that has any link to the physical world at all is physical, well then everything has to be physical because there's no expression of reality through any human consciousness that is not both physical and metaphysical. In other words, it's not both abstract and concrete. If you prefer to use those words, hey, we can use those words. Okay?
Yeah, but metaphysical, so I would prefer you to use the word abstract because I understand.
I just said that. I just said if you prefer, we can use abstract and concrete.
Okay, so let's hear the argument with those words.
Okay, so you agree then that there are abstract things that are subject to different rules than concrete things, right?
Oh, no, they're not subject to different rules. What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, I can talk about digging a hole and say, you know what, let's pretend we dig a hole. Okay, actually, now, forget that. Let's pretend we didn't dig a hole. And okay. I can reset the reality, the conditional reality accordingly, right? Now, if I actually dig a hole, then to get the reality back, I have to fill it back in.
That's not being governed by different rules.
Yeah, it is. It's called conditionality versus causality.
No, that's called a hypothetical. It's called conjecture. One did not exist in actuality. It was just conjecture.
So that's a difference between the two things, right?
That's not a difference in rules, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Look. Okay, all right, look, dude. At this point, I'm done.
The same rules
I am done. I'm done.
The same rules that allow you to dig the hole.
Goodbye. Look, the reality is this. I've made a genuine effort to try to make progress, and you've been on defense the whole time, trying to negate trying to prevent me from accomplishing anything. In other words, doing necessary but insufficient burdens. Nothing is good enough for you to contradict what you're saying, despite the fact that it is patently obvious that what you're saying is absurd. So